the end of the Kamala campaign. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, so much to talk about today. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin. A lot of news. Let me just say this very quickly. I did see the Dinesh D'Souza movie Friday night at the Patriot Place movie theater with Grace, Ashton, Ava. There were other Kuhner Country members in the audience as well. It's a phenomenal movie. Absolutely, the movie is dynamite. I urge everybody, if you haven't seen it, go and see it. You're going to leave with a lot of hope and a lot of faith and a lot of belief in what's going to happen on November 5th. And you don't even have to watch the movie, because Kamala's campaign now is utterly unraveling. It is coming apart at the seams. Here is now the absolute latest. Where is Kamala? That is now the question many in the country are now asking as America and the world burns. Just in the last couple of days alone, here is exactly what is happening across our country and in the world. In Georgia, a major biolab chemical plant has exploded. There is fire everywhere, toxic fumes everywhere. It is an absolute natural disaster. On top of the biolab having blown up, and with all the toxic fumes, parts of Georgia are literally underwater. In fact, it is so bad, President Trump is going to be in Georgia today to help residents in that hurricane-stricken state try to get food and basic medical supplies in, as many residents now struggle, I'm not kidding, literally, to stay alive. Hurricane Helene has pounded Florida, pounded Georgia, pounded North and South Carolina. Parts of Tennessee are underwater. One of the highways underwater. A bridge was so overwhelmed with water it got swept away. You have entire homes, entire communities underwater. They are comparing it to parts of southeastern United States as a 1,000-year flood. As Governor Brian Kemp said, parts of Georgia, it's like a bomb went off. That was the kind of ferocity of Hurricane Helene when it finally made landfall. It is a cyclone that is destroying and has destroyed much in its path. Over 90 dead and counting. Millions of Americans without any electricity or power. Some parts of the southeastern United States look like some post-apocalyptic wasteland. There is now reports coming out of Asheville, North Carolina. Now, Asheville is a little bit inland, and that didn't matter. Asheville, or parts of Asheville, I kid you not, they're not just flooded, they're underwater. Underwater. Where is the governor of North Carolina? Roy Cooper, that Democrat hack. It is so bad. Listen to this. Residents have to resort to private helicopters bailing them out. Where's FEMA? Nowhere. Where are the public officials? Nowhere. Citizens on their own said, I cannot sit back, and those that own helicopters or can rent a helicopter, who can fly a helicopter, are rescuing people off of the roofs of their home. They're rescuing them off to the top of buildings. There was a dramatic rescue of doctors, nurses, medical staff off of the roof of one of the medical buildings. Had it not been for the initiative of private citizens, patriotic, loyal Americans who didn't want to see their fellow neighbors and members in their community drown in front of their eyes, the death toll would be even higher. In Asheville alone, they say there are at least 1,000 people unaccounted for. There's no other way to put it. It is a catastrophe, a massive catastrophe. Where is Kamala Harris? Where is Joe Biden? Biden is nowhere, while Kamala Harris is hiding and fundraising in San Francisco. I'm not kidding. And I'll tell you why. And if nobody else has the guts to say it, I'm going to say it. Because Florida is a red state, blank you. Tennessee is a red state, blank you. And most of the parts of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina that have been hit by this devastating hurricane, those areas are predominantly red areas and red counties. Blank you. That's why she's not there. That's why Biden isn't there. And on top of all of this, in an absolutely brilliant airstrike, I'm talking something that's going to go down in the history books. Israel, while Netanyahu was about to give a speech in New York at the United Nations General Assembly, at the UN General Assembly, Bibi from his hotel room gave the go-ahead to take out the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, the top militia leader, one of the greatest mass murderers and terrorists of the entire last 30 years. The head of Hezbollah was taken out in a daring airstrike using bunker buster bombs, which killed him and much of the Hezbollah leadership. The Hezbollah leadership is now decapitated. Israel now is launching raids into Lebanon to prepare the ground for a major invasion, a ground invasion that is going to take place this week. In short, we're about to see now a massive war in Lebanon, a massive war in the Middle East. Hezbollah is shattered. Their leadership is broken. And Israel rightfully is saying we're going in for the kill. Iran now says they are going to send everything they have to rescue Hezbollah, which is their top proxy terrorist group, while Israel continues to fight on the south against Hamas and now on the north in Lebanon. In short, the Middle East is burning. Where is Kamala Harris? Nowhere. Nowhere. And now, this week, the past week, we clearly hit a watershed. Polls now show Trump starting to pull away. In Arizona, in Nevada, in Pennsylvania. Now, after this, we're going to see what... to me, I think she just kissed away Georgia and North Carolina with her callous, cold disregard for the suffering of the people in those states. I'm telling you right now, with Trump making a heroic appearance today, saying if FEMA will not move, if Biden and Harris will not move, if the inept public authorities will not move, I will. And so Trump is coming in, not just to give a speech. He's going to be bringing in water, food, emergency medical supplies. In other words, if the government won't take care of you, if Biden and Harris don't give a damn, we will. So, as things stand right now, Kamala Harris is in deep, deep, deep trouble. But now there's something else. On top of all of this, and this now should be the political equivalent of a neutron bomb. This campaign is over, and it should be over. While Kamala visited the border on Friday, in a cheap publicity political stunt. ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, this is now the government's own statistics, released information. There's no other way to say it. It is beyond devastating. In any other election where you had the semblance, a scintilla of a fair and honest media, Kamala Harris would be over. It would be over. As Trump rightly put it on Truth Social, ICE now just completely poured cold water over her entire stunt at the border. Because what ICE now shows beyond the shadow of a doubt is that while Kamala Harris finally went to the border after 4 years, a mess that she created, she has now allowed in, and I'm going to get to the specifics, a number of criminals, rapists, and murderers unheard of in human history. I've got the shocking story. Your calls next. 620 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to get to that obviously huge immigration story, which really now should completely wipe out and finish off Kamala's campaign. I'm going to get to it in just 30 seconds. But first, very quickly, many of you are texting the Kuhner man saying, Jeff, what is exactly the death toll right now from Hurricane Helene? It is at least over 100. This is now the absolute latest. Asheville, North Carolina, and I actually have some friends in that part of North Carolina. It has been devastated. There's just no other word. Asheville is underwater. Much of it is literally, it's underwater. There's no electricity, no power. They are isolated. They have been cut off. It is almost impossible to get in supplies. People are going hungry. You now have people in Asheville. You can see it. They're saying, we have no food. We have no water. We're getting very desperate. Now, again, where is the governor, the Democrat governor of North Carolina? Nowhere. Where is FEMA? Nowhere. Where is Biden? He's still on the beach. Kamala is raising money. She's either hiding or she's raising money. Now, I'm telling you, the optics of this are devastating for the Harris campaign. And it's only going to get worse. Hezbollah is on the ropes. Israel now is going to launch a major ground invasion this week. Iran now is saying they're going to have to respond with a massive retaliatory strike. We are now clearly sleepwalking into a major war in the Middle East. And Biden and Harris are utterly powerless and completely inept and incompetent. They're being exposed now, both nationally and internationally. She's fiddling while America and the world burns. Now, on top of all of this, that's why I believe now the momentum for Trump is unstoppable. And I think tomorrow night's vice presidential debate, one of the most important, if not the most important VP debate in the history of the United States, could likely be the final nail in the political coffin of Harris and Waltz. Apparently, J.D. Vance has been boning up, prepping. He's ready to go. Now, before I get to J.D. and the debate, because there's so much ground to cover, this is the big story. As Kamala Harris went to the border to do her little ridiculous photo op. So, for 4 years, she never bothered to go. She obliterated the border. She allowed this invasion to take place. Remember, she was the border czar. That was her portfolio. As Biden himself said, I delegated it all to Kamala. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, this is the federal government's now own statistics, has now proven every so-called conspiracy theorist correct about Harris, Biden, and what they have done to our entire border and to our country. According now to ICE, as of July 21st, 2024, so as of just a couple months ago, these are the latest statistics they have, Kamala Harris has allowed over 650,000 criminal so-called migrants to come into our country. 650,000 convicted criminals or criminals facing charges have been allowed to enter our country and roam our country undetained. So it is an invasion of criminals, but it gets worse. 13,099. Okay, let's not quibble. 13,100 convicted murderers. Let me repeat that. 13,100 convicted murderers have been allowed to come into the United States. They are walking freely among us. 16,000 rapists, convicted rapists, have been allowed to come into the United States, and they are walking freely among us. My friends, they've literally allowed tens of thousands of convicted murderers, rapists, over 500,000 convicted criminals to rampage, plunder, loot, murder, assault, and wreak havoc for the last 4 years. It is an act of national suicide. So let me ask all of you. I want to open up the phone lines now. 617 617. Sorry, Mike, how much time left? Okay. 617-266-6868. 617-266-6868. So I want to ask you a double-barreled question. Number one, what do you make of this bombshell report from ICE that Kamala Harris willingly, knowingly let in 13,000 convicted murderers, 16,000 convicted rapists, and they are now walking freely, roaming our country? And number two, Trump said Kamala was born mentally impaired. She's a mentally disabled individual. Did Trump cross the line? Your calls next. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Taking the call, Jeff.
Hi, CJ.
And right here in Massachusetts, on Nantucket Island, home of the rich and famous, just last month, they arrested 6 illegal aliens for sexual assault, mostly on children. That $13,000 figure you mentioned on murderers being allowed into the country, that was actually reported by NBC News. But don't worry about it. Don't worry about anything. Those poor people down there that are looking for help, that are looking for funding, Joe Biden just gave the Ukraine another $20 billion. That brings the total to around $270 billion. But don't worry about it, because next year the government has announced they're going to give you 2.5% on your cost of living increases, on your Social Security and your pensions. That's how much they think about the American people. They think about others before themselves. You know, the old timers used to say, Jeff, family comes first. Country comes first as well. And that's something this young generation doesn't realize. But, you know, you talk often about election interference. You know, just real quick here, the Justice Department is suing Alabama because they've purged 3,200 names off the voting list for this presidential election. Those people should have never been put on the list because they were ineligible to vote. They were illegal. Justice Department turned around and sued Arizona because they want to verify the identity of the person who is voting. We now have the government encouraging voter fraud in America. You know, you had on your you mentioned on your show a few weeks ago, Sean Fain, the president of the auto workers, who didn't go to his own membership to get their take on who they were going to endorse. Well, GM just announced they're going to be closing a plant down, and by the end of this year, they're going to be losing 1,600 jobs. GM expects to go all electric by 2035. My prediction is 5 years after that, GM's going to be out of business. Unlike Sean O'Brien of the Teamsters Union, he went to his membership. And from what I have seen on Fox News, one interview by an auto worker stated that at least 60% of the Teamsters, and I think it's much more than that, are going to be voting for Donald Trump. You also had mentioned on your show Hillary Clinton last week. She doubled down on deplorables. All right? What woman with any self-respect would stay with a man who, while sitting in the White House behind his desk, smoking on a cigar, and his girlfriend, you know, underneath the desk playing his saxophone? You talk about respect. You know, if I was this woman, I'd have my head buried in 10 feet of sand. She has a lot of nerve talking about half of the voters of this country being deplorables. And as I've often said, Jeff, you only have two types of people in this country, Americans and anti-Americans. You want people who want to strengthen this country, who want to, you know, we can help others, but not to the point where it's straining on our own population and our own people. And that's what's happening in America today. And as for Kamala Harris, I mean, you could write a soap opera about the sexual deviation of the Clintons, Harris, and I can tell you, Trump maybe had made a mistake when he said that there is something mentally wrong with her. And my opinion is on that. When she was 30 years old and Willie Brown was 60, I think Willie Brown screwed her brains out. That's what I think, Jeff. There is something mentally wrong with this woman. Look at her actions. Look at her hands. Look at the way she speaks. Either that or she spoke too much pot out there in California.
Well, I think you put your finger on it. CJ, I think it's the alcoholism, and I think it's the nonstop marijuana that she's been smoking for decades and decades. It's the drug abuse and the alcohol abuse. And I think it's damaged her brain. I think there's no question. No question. CJ, I agree with you on every count. Look, just quickly on Alabama. I mean, so you have the Department of Justice now suing the government of Alabama because they purged their rolls of nearly 4,000 illegal aliens and dead people. That's how desperate they are to get illegals to cheat and vote. I mean, you can't make it more obvious. Why? Because you've got Kamala. You can't sell Kamala. That's the problem. So they're going to need every illegal that they can, every illegal voter that they can to try to steal this election in November. I mean, it's so obvious. CJ, as always, thank you very much for that call. Look, let me be perfectly blunt with all of you. Lot of emails over the weekend. Lot of emails from many of you, diehard Trump supporters, who are telling me, please talk to President Trump, talk to his team, not to call Kamala Harris mentally impaired or mentally disabled. They're saying it's turning voters off. This is what some of you are saying. He can make his point by saying 20 other names, or, he can call her stupid. He can call her an airhead. He can call her a vacuous. He can call her a dunderhead. He can call her a lightweight. He can call her an idiot. You can call her almost anything. But when you start going down the road of mentally impaired, mentally disabled, it's going to turn people off. Now, this is what some of you are saying. I look, to me, I think there's clearly something mentally wrong with this woman. I know exactly what Trump means, and I agree with CJ. I think it's decades of marijuana abuse, getting stoned over and over again, and the chronic alcoholism, the drinky. And I think it's clearly damaged her brain. There's no question. Her mannerisms, the way she slurs her words, her word salads, her inability to think in any way that's logical or coherent. There's something wrong with her. I mean, you just take a look at her, you can tell there's something wrong with her. But what some of you are saying is it was a very bad choice of words. And on a major issue where you had ICE come out with this incredible story, these numbers of 500,000 known criminals that she allowed into our country deliberately, 13,000 convicted murderers. Who the hell? These people murdered. They're convicted of murdering. And you let them in? Rapists? As any criminologist will tell you, you know what the recidivism rate is among rapists and child molesters? It's almost 100%. Do you know what you're doing to the women, to the children, to the citizens of this country? So the point they're saying is this incredible information, this devastating information has gotten buried because they're pouncing on mentally impaired. Listen now to Trump. This is him now in Pennsylvania. And he didn't let up. He did not let up, saying that these numbers that have just been released by ICE should disqualify Kamala and would disqualify any other candidate in any other time in American history. Roll cut 3, Mike.
But somebody felt that these numbers should be released, and they came out actually just as she got to the border. It's very interesting. This was a little tough because she gets up and she goes, well, I didn't really get involved too much with the border, but I'm going to now get involved. Why didn't she do it almost 4 years ago? Why didn't she do it? Because she can't do it. She can't do it. Number one, she doesn't have the capability. Number two, her base will not let her do it. For whatever reason that is, you have to explain that.
No, well, they want open borders. He's completely right. The base wants unlimited third world immigration, illegal immigration, and wide open borders. That's what they want. That's the World Economic Forum. That's what the globalists, those that run and control the Democratic Party, that's what they want. Now, he doubled down. So Trump said, no, you keep telling me not to call her mentally impaired? I'm going to call her mentally impaired. And again, he said Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. So he repeated it. This is now Trump in PA. This is him in Pennsylvania. Roll cut 5, Mike.
Crooked Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Sad. But lying Kamala Harris, honestly, I believe she was born that way. There's something wrong with Kamala. And I just don't know what it is, but there is definitely something missing. And you know what? Everybody knows it.
Okay. What do you make now of this bombshell story of all these murderers and rapists that Kamala has deliberately, willfully led into our country? Trump now says she's mentally impaired. There's no other way to explain her actions and her behavior. Did he cross the line? Should he have used a different phrase? Do you think it's going to hurt him? Is he politically shooting himself in the foot? What say you? 617-266-6868. Russ, speaking of the Carolinas, Russ in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. By the way, I've been there twice. I love Myrtle Beach. Gorgeous part of the country. Russ, how are all of you doing down there in the wake of Hurricane Helene?
We're fine here on the coast, okay? My sympathies for those folks inland in North Carolina and Georgia. Jeff, I don't want to throw cold water on your show this morning, but and I'm not Bill from Sudbury, okay? So bear with me for just a second as to where these figures are coming from, because the truth is bad enough that we don't have to sensationalize it, and Trump doesn't have to sensationalize it. I'm looking into these figures, and Tony Gonzalez of Texas got this from ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. And this is the backlog of criminals in ICE that are in whose records are in deportation proceedings. The problem is that ICE and DHS, the Cuban cue ball, don't have any clue as to where these people are.
That's right.
Not all of them were admitted in just the past few years. It's not as if Kamala is waving in murderers over the border. These are people who have committed offenses here in the country. And one of the big problems is sanctuary states and sanctuary cities where these people are either locked up, and some of them are locked up. The ICE will tell you that, but they don't know that for a fact. And when these people are released, they're supposed to be turned over to ICE to be deported, shipped out of the country. But California, Minnesota, Massachusetts will not do that, will not turn these people over. They just let them walk out the jailhouse door, and then ICE has to go out and find them, which is admittedly extraordinarily difficult. And that's where these criminals end up at large among the American citizenry to reoffend. Okay, and they'll be at large until they're arrested again for another offense. So that is shocking enough, Jeff. So that we need to stick to the facts, because our side cannot be the ones who are lying. Well,
nobody's
Democrats.
lying. I mean, that's Russ. That's where I disagree with you. Nobody's lying. Many of these people were willingly let in. They have criminal records. MS-13, she's let in gangs who have slaughtered people back in their home countries. You have others, you're right, they were convicted here in the United States. They've been released, and they're now roaming our streets. Now, you have murderers roaming our streets. I mean, fine, they did their 20 years or their 15 years or their 12 years, but they should be deported. They're not being deported. It's not like they're being detained or held somewhere. You've got rapists, 16,000 rapists and child molesters who should be deported, and they're roaming our streets. Now, you're right. Many of them are in sanctuary states and sanctuary cities, which is that's why they're able to hide in the shadows. In fact, I'll bet you dollars to donuts, many of them are probably collecting welfare benefits. That's how disgusting this whole thing is. But there's no question, this is a massive scandal. 650,000 criminal migrants, 35,000 with convicted criminals, 13,099 murderers, almost 16,000 rapists. She should be gone. I mean, this should be one of the biggest scandals in the entire country. And nothing. Okay, I stand corrected. NBC apparently did a small piece on it. But I'm telling you right now, ABC News, nothing. CBS News, nothing. CNN, nothing. MSNBC, nothing. New York Times, Boston Globe, Washington Post, Associated Press, they didn't even do a story on it. And she's going to the border, as Trump says, acting like she's this big border hawk. Look what she allowed into our country. And I mean, just think of these numbers. These numbers are staggering. 13,000 murderers, 16,000 rapists and child molesters. That's someone's daughter. That's someone's wife. That's someone's son. That's someone's father. That's someone's husband. That's someone's grandchild. To do this to our country, oh my God. Like really, it's diabolical. There's just no other way to put it. It's truly diabolical. And then you compound it with sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, and that we're actually giving these people, benefits is to me astounding. But to get back to the original point, Kamala Harris now owns all of this. All of this. And what kind of person? Only her and Joe Biden and Mayorkas, who to me also doesn't mentally look right to me. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. I see him when he testifies. I see how he talks, the way he reasons. I'm like, does the elevator go to the top with this guy? Like, he's got a serious screw loose, which is another way of saying he's mentally impaired. So I'm looking at Trump and I'm saying, okay, I mean, maybe not the nicest way to phrase it. Would I probably have phrased it like that? No. But is he off? I don't think so. You got to have something seriously wrong with you to do this to your own country and to your own people. We're no longer talking about immigration. Honestly, we're not talking about, hey, Jeff, boy, legal immigration in this country. I mean, they're just letting in people from all over and they're taking our jobs. And when you start allowing criminals convicted to come in, or, to your point, they have committed crimes in the United States, and you won't deport them? You let them walk the streets after they've raped someone or molested a child or murdered someone? You hate this country. You seriously hate this country. And you're not fit to govern it. To me, there's no other conclusion. And again, outside of Trump, where are the Republicans? Again, even Tony Gonzalez, who was the guy who released the ICE numbers, as he releases the numbers, goes on X and says, oh, we need a lot more legal immigration. No, it's illegal immigration is so economically good for the United States. And I'm like, buddy, what is wrong with you, man? Well, I know what's wrong with him. He's bought and paid for by the Chamber of Commerce. And I'm like, you've got to secure that border. That border has to be secure. It's got to be sealed. This has got to be stopped. When someone is dying, first do no harm. Stop the bleeding. You got to stop the bleeding. And then you got to start deporting. And we're talking now millions of criminal illegal aliens. And then we can talk about a regulated, a sensible immigration system. But to me, this idea of, bring in more. That's your answer to this report? Bring in more? We have a death wish. I'm telling you, this country has a death wish. And if we're not careful, we're going to get it. You know the old expression, be careful what you wish for, you just may get it? That's us right now. Russ, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Jake in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Jake, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jake.
Jeff, as much as we all love Trump, most of us who listen to your show do. He did it again, Jeff. All he had to do was go in front of that audience and say, Kamala Harris is the enemy of the United States. Joe Biden is the enemy of the United States. And anybody who supports this massive illegal immigration of murderers, rapists, and child molesters are enemies of the United States. That's all he had to say. But as usual, and you know this and I know this, I don't know what it is about him. He gives the enemy, who is the media and all of the Democratic talking points, he gives them ammunition to use against him. And he should have said, after he said what he said, now look, if the mainstream media is not going to report this, they are the enemy of this country. This is a crisis of monumental proportions, and anybody.
Well, Jake, to be honest, that's what many of you are saying. You're not the only one saying it. In fact, a few wrote me, they emailed me, and some are texting me now saying, Jeff, I have a disabled child, or someone in my family is disabled, and I'm really offended that Trump used that term. So I'm just curious, did Trump cross the line? 720 on the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay, just super quick, just to reset everything. Here is what Trump said in Wisconsin. Clearly, he was as shocked and outraged by these unbelievable numbers that were released by ICE, ironically, on Friday, within a couple of hours before Kamala did her publicity stunt visiting the border. Listen now to Trump. Roll cut 1B, Mike.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country.
So, it is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Were you offended, or are you offended, that Trump called Harris, quote unquote, mentally impaired? A, yes, B, no. In other words, did it offend you? I'm not saying you're not going to vote for the guy, or you hate him, or you're done with him. Just, was it a poor choice of words? Were you offended? A, yes. B, no. I want to hear from you, Kuhner Country. The media, you're going to hear about this now. It's going to be nonstop for the next 24, 48 hours minimum. Oh, man, they're going to go. It's going to be wall to wall. It's going to be saturation coverage. So, were you offended? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X. I am super active on X, as I was again last night. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER, at the Kuhner Report. Okay, it is coming in fast and furious. On the text line, 70470. This is from 617. Jeff, I'm no shrink, but it doesn't take a doctor to see that something's out of order with Kamala. And there is a huge difference between being mentally disabled and being a mental disordered, being mentally disordered. She is a sociopath in the sense that she obviously has no conscience and is incapable of truly caring about humanity. It does mean she's lacking, but not a good word choice by Trump. Despite being perhaps the most inarticulate president ever, people need to face the reality that he is the only choice. Interesting. Okay. This is from Larry on Messenger. No. In fact, he's a veteran, served in the Air Force for many years, very polite. No, sir. He's not offended at all. When Trump calls Harris mentally challenged, he's focused on her. When Democrats say half of us are deplorables, it's painting a large voting segment. Well, and that's a very good point. And just very quickly to piggyback off of what Larry's saying, I mean, let's be fair. They've called Trump every name in the book. She's called Trump. Kamala has called Trump every name in the book. He's a dictator. He's a traitor. He's an insurrectionist. He's Hitler. He's a fascist, white supremacist, racist, sexist. They've puh. I mean, that's all they do is spit on the guy. That's all she does is spit on him. He turns around and says, okay, you're mentally impaired. And all of a sudden now the sky is falling. Agree, disagree. I mean, they can dish it out, but they certainly can't take it. Pat in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thanks for holding, Pat, and welcome.
Hello, Mr. Kuhner.
Hi, Pat.
Yes, what I want to bring up, a few things I want to bring up real quick. One, I had lost my eyesight 30 years ago, and if I've heard once, I've heard a million times, especially during this election stuff, people say you'd have to be blind not to know what's going on. That don't offend me when somebody says that. I know what the hell is going on, but people say that. And secondly, the Democrats want to evoke the 25th Amendment on Biden, who's definitely mentally challenged. Why hasn't anybody said anything about that?
Pat, have you called this show before?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
Yes, I have.
Pat, please, call more often. Don't be a stranger. Bang, bang, bang. You absolutely nailed it. Pat, thank you very much for that call. So are people being offended over nothing? I'm just curious. I want to hear from you. All of your calls next. 7:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me, because Kuhner Country, very divided on this issue. Very divided. You can text us 70470, 70470. Okay, this is from 602. Jeff, to be completely honest, and many of you are summing up the feelings of this texter, I think by calling Kamala mentally impaired, Trump actually threw her a very generous lifeline. And here's why I say this. When we weigh in, it's totally exactly what this woman has allowed and done to our country. There is no other word to describe what she's done but treason. If we can chalk up all these crimes against our country to simply being mentally impaired, then the worst that she deserves is to be institutionalized. But if she's guilty of premeditated treason, which I believe she is, the penalty for that is much more severe. And I think you know what that penalty is, Jeff. Let Trump be Trump. So, in a nutshell, okay, what 602 is saying is, Jeff, think about it. If she's mentally impaired, in other words, she was like, as Trump said, look, she was born and something is not right with this woman. And I think what he means, to be honest, is she's a sociopath. Lack of a conscience, lack of certain basic humanity, basic decency, basic caring for others. When you're allowing, as the ICE report came out, deliberately, how many, 13,000 murderers, convicted murderers to roam our streets? 16,000 rapists, illegals? And you know they're here and they're walking freely among us? And you're not allowing them, you don't care for them to be detained, deported, captured, and you're just letting them wreak havoc? There's something seriously wrong with you, man. Just come on. I see one person being raped. My instinct is to help. Never mind thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands. So, Trump's point is the woman there's a serious, serious screw loose. But then, in a way, she's not mentally right in the head. So as the texter said, then you have to institutionalize somebody like that. But if she's truly guilty of treason, in other words, she's cold, it's premeditated, I want this, I want to inflict this damage and death and pain and suffering on my fellow country, my fellow Americans, then my friends, she, in the old days, she'd get the death, she'd get the firing squad. Now she'd, get life in prison. So in a way, it's a compliment. It could, really, it could be a hell of a lot worse. It's that I'll tell you what the issue is. The issue is that he went mentally impaired and then said she's mentally disabled. And many people who have disabilities themselves or have children or grandchildren or nephews or nieces with disabilities, didn't like that choice of words. They were offended by it. And that was I knew because I got all these emails over the weekend and I'm like, and these are all Trump supporters. They're not going to say they're not voting for him. They're just saying, could you please tell him not to do that? It's turning people off. It angers me, and I'm one of his supporters. He could use a million other words. Don't use this phrase. And I'm just curious. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Mark in Medford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, and I totally disagree. Why? They're offended by the truth? Have you noticed, Jeff, the last 4 or 5 years, the truth offends everybody?
That's a very good point. Mark, elaborate. Why do you think she's mentally impaired?
Well, I just sent you that video on Messenger. I hope you saw it. Because I don't know.
But Mark, the audience didn't. If you could just, for the audience, if you could just elaborate, Mark, please.
I don't think she's mentally disabled. I just think she's an alcoholic and a drug abuser, and her brain is fried, Jeff. I mean, Jeff, all day yesterday, I watched football, okay? And they ran a Kamala Harris ad almost every commercial break. And they're still going with the, I worked at McDonald's. And if you need anything, I don't ask if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You'll get it. Well, why aren't you in North Carolina there, Kamala? Why aren't you there? Trump is going there. That just goes to show you, Jeff, tells us all we need to know and who really cares about us and who really cares about this country. And it's not Kamala Harris, it's not Joe Biden, and it's not the friggin' Democrats. It's Donald John Trump.
As always, drop the mic, Mark. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I completely agree with you. But again, she never worked at McDonald's. It's just, and think about it, seriously. Like, how pathetic are you? And there's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's. In fact, when Ashton turns 16, believe me, he's going to go to McDonald's or Burger King or, whatever. Nothing wrong with working at McDonald's. You learn good skills. You make some decent money on the side, little pocket money, good work habits. Nothing against working at McDonald's. But my point is, you're a candidate for president of the United States. And your most significant accomplishment in the private sector is that you worked for McDonald's? Like, think about this for a second. Holy mackerel. I mean, to me, you're mentally not right in the head if that's an ad that you're running. Hey, I worked at McDonald's, vote for me. I'm like, lady, are you serious? Brain damage. Too much booze, drinky. And too much of the puff. 617-266-6868. Beth in Beverly. Thanks for holding, Beth, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are
Hi,
you?
Beth. I'm good. How are you, Beth?
I'm doing fine, and I'm so glad that your callers, like Mark, who you just hung up with, said what he said, because I'm on Team Mark as well. There's so much that President Trump has done for people throughout the many decades, but people don't talk about it. Most recently, he gave the woman money in the grocery store. He also had a little boy with a brain disorder that he sent him a birthday gift, as well as invited him to their rally, and he met him in person. He calls the military families. None of these things are ever talked about. Only the negativity of President Trump is always talked about. And he does so much for the sick, the injured, the needy. And all the press wants to do when they attend those rallies or listen to his speech is find one little word that they can then twist and turn and make it into something disgusting as we try to get those votes from the middle, independent, undecided. So I really think it's time to pivot and turn and maintain what he has done. He didn't even take a paycheck while he was president. Well, we know the others, they grift, they steal, they loot, and they pretty much do as much as those they've invited in illegally to the country. I just want to just stand behind President Trump and walk away from any little negativity. We all know what he really meant because we know what he does for those that truly need assistance. And that's all I had to say.
Beth, if I was to ask you to vote on the poll question, our poll question of the day, were you offended or are you offended by him using, calling Kamala mentally impaired? Are you a yes or a no? Are you offended or not offended?
Not offended, because I know what President Trump was referring to.
Exactly. You read my mind. I'm a B all the way. I go, no, what he's saying is the woman's got a couple of serious screws loose. If you sat down with the guy and say, could you just elaborate for a few sentences? He goes, oh yeah, the woman's an alcoholic. All the drugs, you can tell it's damaged her brain. How else do you explain this woman doing what she did to our country? I'm telling you, I guarantee you that would be his answer. And who could disagree with that? He's right. Beth, thank you very, very much for that call. Mike, how much time left? Okay, I don't have time to take a call now, but I will after the break. So super quick reset. As I've been talking about most of the day, most of this morning, huge story. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, released there's another word, bombshell, explosive report. 13,100 convicted murderers are migrants in our country, roaming, walking freely among us. 16,000 convicted rapists, all in the last 3.5 years under Kamala. 7:50 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is this stuff now. I promise I don't want to get too off topic here, but this needs to be said. What's happening now down south? This is absolutely heart-wrenching. And the media is preventing images from coming out because they're trying to desperately protect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So here is now, and many of you are Kuhner country, you're on top of it. This is from 508. Jeff, Biden has just said he has no more resources to give to hurricane victims down south, but we can keep giving billions to Ukraine to try to start World War III? Beyond disgusting. One of you sent me, which is true, a snapshot of the website of FEMA. And it's right there on their website. Their number one goal, according to FEMA, I want to read this to all of you, instill equity as a foundation of emergency management. Goal number one, I want to repeat it. Goal number one, instill equity as a foundation of emergency management. Well, now you know why FEMA's nowhere to be seen. Now you know why. I'm sorry, my blood is boiling here. Now you know why you've got people in Florida, Georgia, North, South Carolina, Tennessee, who are crying out for help in the wake of Hurricane Helene. And they're saying, where the hell is FEMA? And this is what one of you texted the Kuhner man. Jeff, I'm sure people who've lost loved ones, lost their homes, and now see their town literally underwater, feel really great knowing that FEMA's number one goal is to be woke. Everything now about their terrible response makes sense. What an embarrassment. Yep, that's Kamala for you. That's Kamala and Biden. This is from 917. Jeff, Trump spoke the truth. Too bad if anyone is offended. I'm offended by the non-response to the hurricane devastation down south. I agree. I completely agree. Okay, I just want to, this is a heart-wrenching story, but one of you has sent it to me, and I have to report on it. So it is a picture, a photo of what is happening in Asheville, North Carolina. This is a 1,000-year flood. I'm telling you, this is something biblical. I've never seen floodwaters this high. So it's Asheville. It is a husband and a wife. It is the last image of them. They're on the roof of their house. The water is about to now go over the roof, eclipse the roof. There are tree stumps all around them, debris, rushing water. On the picture, you can see the panic in their faces. They're sheltering from this flood on the roof. The roof, however, would soon collapse, causing them, the husband and wife, and their 6-year-old grandchild to drown. Their daughter and mother of the child took this photograph. When the roof collapsed, she got wedged between debris and was able to be rescued an hour later. So she was lucky. She was the only one that survived. And things apparently are way worse in Burnsville. Jeff, please send these pictures out. They need to reach people. The media is not showing any of this. Joe Biden says there's no money. You know who rescued that mother as she was lodged in debris after she lost her child and her parents? Private volunteers, private citizens. Helicopters owned or manned by private citizens are the ones rescuing people in Asheville and across North Carolina and Georgia. Not FEMA. Where is Kamala Harris? Where is Joe Biden? Where is FEMA? And as I said in my opening monologue, and I'm going to repeat it, because this needs to be said. Florida is a red state. Blank you. South Carolina is a red state. Blank you. Tennessee is a red state. Blank you. And those areas being devastated in Georgia and North Carolina by Helene are all red or predominantly red counties or red areas. Blank you. Donald Trump is going to Georgia and North Carolina today. Not Kamala Harris, not Joe Biden. Forget FEMA. Trump is going to be bringing in water. Trump is going to be bringing in food. Trump is going to be bringing in emergency and medical supplies. Our own government has turned its back on its own people. in the midst of one of the most devastating hurricanes in recent memory and some of the most devastating flooding, they're saying in 100 years. And where's Kamala Harris? She's raising money in San Francisco. That tells you everything you need to know. 617-266-6868 is the number. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
Jeff, President Trump reminds me of Harry Truman, being honest, plain-spoken, with no sugarcoating BS. And I'm tired of listening to scumbag politicians with nothing but sugar-coated BS day in and day out. And I'm tired of it being reported. You know, former Governor Huckabee said it best. If you need major heart surgery, do you want the surgeon with the best track record or the one with the best bedside manner? Only a fool would want the one with the best bedside manner. Like crap, you can shine Harris all day and all night. She still will stink to the high heavens, without question. What Harris and Biden have done is put in the invasion of this country on the fast track with the guidance of Obama to transform the U.S. by changing the demographics. This latest storm is a new evidence how incompetent Harris and Biden are. This is a preview of what this country will look like during World War III. To the warmongers, F you. If you vote for Harris, you are a self-destructing, ignorant fool. To all the jackasses who have Harris signs on your car and home, people can think you are politically stupid. The sign will remove all doubt. November the 5th will be Judgment Day. The choice is clear. Freedom or evil, freedom or evil, freedom or evil. That's the choice on November the 5th, okay? And unfortunately here in Massachusetts, the land of the politically stupid, I hate to say this, but the fools in Massachusetts, Harris will probably win Massachusetts by 10 points for sure, okay? That's how stupid the people we share this state with.
Russ, and just to add an exclamation point to your excellent points, if there was massive flooding here, FEMA would be all over it. Harris would be here. Biden would be here. Oh, it would be, you wouldn't believe the aid that we'd be getting. Or if this was New York City, or if this was Chicago, or if this was California, it would be raining assistance. Okay, there'd be more money coming down than rain. Because they protect the blue states. But God forbid you happen to be a conservative or a Trump supporter or a state that happens to be a red state or a red area or a red county. You're on your own. Yeah, they throw you to the wolves. Russ, as always, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry, but this is really beyond disgusting. And I just want to read one more text because it really sums up the feelings of many of you and, frankly, my own feelings. This is from 917. Jeff, I'm pissed. Kamala's lack of courage, compassion, and leadership is on full display as a result of her non-response to Hurricane Helene. Oh, I know. It's borderline criminal. To go back to Trump's point, there's something wrong with this woman. Like, really, there's something, the elevator, whatever phrase you want to use, the elevator doesn't go, to the top. She's a couple cards short of a full deck. She's got a couple of screws loose. If you want to do Trump, she's mentally impaired. Whatever it is, mentally damaged. Whatever it is. Biden, we know, is suffering from dementia. That we know. Okay, he's out to lunch. I don't even think he knows what's going on down south. But her. And in the midst of an election campaign, you. Cassandra in Brockton. Thanks for holding, Cassandra. Oh, we just lost Cassandra. Okay, let's go to Chris in Lunenburg. John in Groveland. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you today?
Very good. How are you, John?
I'm good. Jeff, are you familiar with the term that Customs and Border Patrol and ICE use, known gotaways?
Yes.
Okay, that is a statistical equation that they use for illegals that they know have crossed the border, our porous border, that they're not in control of. So we have 13,000 known murderers and killers roaming around in the United States right now. In the last 3 years and 9 months under Biden and Harris, there have been 538 known terrorist watch list people caught at our border. That's known. Now let's go back to known gotaways. Take those two figures that I just gave you. Is it 10% more, 5% more, 15% more? This is just the tip of the iceberg, Jeff. What Biden and Harris have done to this country is unforgivable. Under Article 5, Section 4 of the Constitution, it requires the federal government to protect and defend the borders. By not defending our borders, the government gives aid and comfort to a hostile foreign invasion. Under Article 3, Section 3 of the Constitution, that's called treason. It's treason, Jeff. And the fact that the media is more upset with Trump's comment than they are about 13,000 killers walking around the streets of America, rapists, gangbangers, drug dealers, this is just unforgivable, Jeff. And the fact that the mainstream media is not touching this, like you said earlier, complete blackout. They got their 4:30 a.m. talking points, and from their overlords to just leave this alone, because this would shock the conscience of the average.
I agree.
American.
Oh no, John, this would finish her. I'm telling you, her campaign's over. I mean, this will come out in dribs and drabs. It'll come out through this show, and I'm sure Mark Levin's going to talk about it on his show, and Tucker, and it's getting out. Fox is mentioning it, Newsmax. It's going to make its way eventually. But you're completely right. Look, John, to prove your point, 650,000 criminal so-called migrants, known criminal migrants, convicted or charged, are walking around free as a bird in our country. Mostly in sanctuary states, sanctuary cities. So they're not being deported. They're not being detained. They're not even telling ICE where they are. ICE we have no idea where they are. As you said, 13,000 murderers, convicted murderers, 16,000 convicted rapists and child molesters. John, as I said earlier, the recidivism rate, the repeat offender rate is almost 100%. So what you're saying is rape more women, rape and molest more children. Keep going. We're not going to deport you. No, why would we deport you? I mean, it's shocking. It's unforgivable. It's criminal. And that's why Trump lashed out in Wisconsin and in Pennsylvania. He's like, she knowingly allowed this to happen. While she's taking, this comes out, these statistics come out, as she's taking photo ops at the border that she hasn't been to in 4 years. The border that she destroyed. And she's with her stupid sunglasses and cackle. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to secure the border. I'm a prosecutor. That's what I do. And so his point is the level of lying, of mendacity, how vain she is, how narcissistic she is, what a pathological, sociopathic liar she is. That's what he said. There's something not right with this woman in the head. That's what he really meant. Like there's something. This woman's got a serious mental defect. She has no conscience. John, I'm telling you, this woman is a sociopath. She's a complete and utter sociopath. And a traitor to boot. Because she's aiding and abetting the invasion of our country. John, thank you very much for that call. It's unconscionable. It's unforgivable. 617-266-6868 is the number. Cassandra, we got her back. Cassandra in Brockton. Thanks for holding, Cassandra, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
yes.
Cassandra.
I saw the speech when he was making them in Wisconsin, and as soon as he said it, I said, "Oh my God, this is going to turn against President Trump." I love and respect President Trump, but sometimes he needs to realize the Democrats are waiting for him to say something to turn it against him. Because I know folks who does not ever flip their TV station just only CNN. They sleep with CNN. They wake up with it in MSNBC. So everything they say is gospel. Everything they say is the God honest truth. So he needs to tone it down. Even though he wants to call her incompetent, there's a word for that. But I think he needs to care for how he relate towards this woman. We all know she's not smart. She's not a smart person. She like she says, she used her pen to do evil. Okay? So that's one thing I think President Trump needs to realize. Using those words, maybe like Democrats are very sensitive. Everything is harsh. She is incompetent. She definitely has something mentally wrong, and I don't know how she passed college. Seriously, I don't understand. How did she pass to have the bar exam? For someone like that to sign things that is not even right in the comprehensive of a human being, she doesn't have that. And I'm wondering if she could be alcoholic. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So that's what I was saying this morning. I saw the speech. I quenched. I said, oh, my God. She's going to use that in a commercial to go against President Trump, how evil and mean and terrible this man is. As we know, he's not. He was just being angry. But he just needs to tone down. Those words for Democrats, they will not put up with that. I know my family alone who are hardcore Democrats, no matter what these people do, is they still believe in the Democrats. I mean, I get email from my sisters and brothers. I just ignore them because there's nothing I can say that will make them understand.
Cassandra, thank you very much. Interesting, very interesting call. Cassandra, as always, thank you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Well, look, this is what's driving much of the news cycle today is the mentally impaired comment. That's what they're pouncing on. And you're right, Cassandra. They will take that out of context, like a snippet, and then say, oh, look at him. He's making fun of the mentally disabled. Look at the names. Look at what he's calling Kamala. He's a sexist pig. Racist, sexist pig. Look at this. A bully. Look at the kind of, he's insulting, he's bullying, he's nasty, he's vicious. Well, why don't you put in the full context of that report? Now, I'm getting some feedback on Messenger. Cheryl and others are saying, Jeff, you got to be careful. The media are reporting on what's happening down south, like in Asheville and other places. No, I didn't say the media is not reporting. They are. They're covering it. They're not covering the bombshell ICE story. That's the big one that they're not covering. That the statistics of all these murders and rapes and criminals were knowingly allowed now to enter our country, stay in our country, roam around and walk freely in our country. That's the one they're covering up. Not in Asheville. What they're covering up in Asheville and other places is how weak and late and ineffective the FEMA response has been. FEMA saying, oh, we're releasing all this money. It's not getting to anybody, or very few. And the death toll now, by the way, is over 100. So we're looking at least 100 dead. So, no, they're covering what's happening down south from Hurricane Helene. I never said they didn't. But what they're not covering is that Kamala Harris is nowhere to be seen. Biden is nowhere to be seen. FEMA is being heavily criticized by the residents on the ground. In fact, in Asheville, North Carolina, They are going hungry. People are saying there's no power, no water, no food. Please help us. We're dying down here. More next. 8:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very quick. This is from Alan. He's a big supporter of the show. He's out in South Carolina. Here is what Alan messaged me just a couple minutes ago. Jeff, can't get through on the phone lines. I guess we're jammed. Our phones are jammed. Jeff, as of late yesterday, there were still 904,000 homes in South Carolina. That's several million people still without power. This week, listen to this, several upstate dams will have water released to alleviate pressure on the dam so there is not a catastrophic failure. This will result still in a surge of water down already swollen rivers. Residents near those rivers who opt not to evacuate have been advised, holy mackerel, to take a Sharpie permanent marker and write their name, address, and last 4 digits of their social security number on their forearm so their bodies can be identified. Holy mackerel. Holy mackerel. So this is what I mean. This is... No, I understand. They're trying to get people to evacuate. No, I hear you, Sandy. But still, that means there's going to be a lot more damage coming, a lot more devastation, and sadly, a lot more death. And again, where's Biden? Where's Harris? Where the hell is FEMA? 617-266-6868. But the story this morning is that Trump called Kamala mentally impaired. So let me ask all of you, should Trump walk it back? Should he apologize like many Republicans are now urging him to do? Should he avoid and not say the term or call her mentally impaired? Do you think he crossed the line? I don't at all, but that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Chris in Lunenburg. Thanks for holding, Chris, and welcome.
Good morning, sir. I just called to talk about the fact that this immigration issue is a concerted effort to change the electorate permanently in the United States, not this year, but 20 years from now.
Go ahead, Chris.
So you have all these people crossing the border, gotaways, whatever, but you have millions upon millions of women, children, what have you, that in 20 years are going to be in a voting age. And they're either going to be here in the United States, these women are going to have children, they're going to be USCs, they're going to be voting in 20 years, and they're going to vote Democrat. It's going to happen. Democrats don't necessarily care about this election, they care about the one 20 years from now.
Well, Chris, the only slight disagreement I would have with you is I think they care about both. I think they do care about this election a lot. They're going to, hence the 2 assassination attempts on Trump, and they're trying to jail him and imprison him and bankrupt him. But you're right. They're not just playing the short game. They're also playing the long game. And they're looking at 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And, Chris, look, there's been so much news over this weekend. It's really incredible. The Hungarian government, and this gets right back to your point, and as you know, George Soros is initially Hungarian. By the way, he's banned in his own country. The Hungarians say he comes, we're going to arrest him on the spot. Well, the Hungarian government has now unearthed huge documents that show that Soros in 2015, along with other key oligarchs, implemented, this is by design now, a plan to subvert, his words, not just the United States, but the entire Western world, Europe and North America, under unlimited migration, illegal third world migration. This was deliberate. Soros planned it. And he said, that's how we're going to subvert and overthrow all these countries. If you want socialism, if you want one-party progressive rule, that's what Soros argued. The key is mass migration. Bring them in from all over the second world, the third world, and let them flood the countries of Europe, Canada, and United States. So not only is this a Democrat plan, but Soros now has admitted it's part of a global plan by the globalist oligarchs. So, Chris, just to reinforce what you're saying, they don't care if murderers come in. They don't care if rapists come in. They don't care if child molesters come in. They just keep them coming in. Overload the system. And then it's all theirs. Kamala Harris is a traitor. Agree, disagree, more of your calls next. 8:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, listen now to President Trump. He was talking about the stunning numbers that came out by ICE over the weekend. These are official government statistics. This is him in Wisconsin. Roll cut. And by the way, the day after Kamala visited the border. So she's visiting the border, claiming she's going to be this, tough on the border, this hawk who's going to, fix the border situation, while ICE, almost simultaneously, released these crushing numbers. 650,000 criminals, migrants, so-called migrants, criminals roaming in our country. Undetained, they're in the shadows, they're not being deported, walking freely among us. 13,100 convicted murderers, 16,000 convicted rapists and child molesters. Listen now to Trump in Wisconsin. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
Think of it. 13,099 murderers. Convicted of murder, not like convicted of murder. Some of the worst murders you've ever seen. They're all in our country now, every one of them. And I've been saying this for 3 years, and the fake news has been saying, well, you don't know that. Well, now we know it. They've never released a list like this. Not just on this, they've never done it. Over the years, they've never done it. She let in, and that's not even mentioning the rapists, the gang members, the drug dealers, the child predators, and the traffickers in women. In women, mostly women.
So, he's basically saying to allow this and to do this to your own country, you've got to have something seriously wrong with you in the head. Listen now to Trump. And this is what got everybody going absolutely bananas. Roll cut 1B, Mike.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country.
Now, he then doubled down. Many Republicans called him up, said, don't do it. The media pounced, claiming that he's insulting the mentally disabled, that he's being racist and sexist against Kamala Harris, that this is character assassination, this is defamatory, libel, blah, 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 the whole bit. So basically Orange Man evil. So he went to Pennsylvania. And listen now to Trump. Roll cut 5. Mike.
Crooked Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Sad. But lying Kamala Harris, honestly, I believe she was born that way. There's something wrong with Kamala. And I just don't know what it is, but there is definitely something missing. And you know what? Everybody knows it.
So, look, obviously most of his supporters don't care, but some do, obviously. And the media is making a huge thing about this. Now, listen to Lindsey Graham. He went on, "This is CNN," and defended Trump, saying, look at her policies. They're absolutely crazy. How can you not say there's not something mentally wrong with this woman? Roll cut 10, Mike.
First of all, there are actual people out there with mental impairments, and that's insulting to them. Second of all, Vice President Kamala Harris is not mentally impaired.
No, I just think she's crazy liberal. I don't question her.
But what do you think about that rhetoric?
I just think the better course to take is to prosecute the case that her policies are destroying the country. They're crazy liberal. 400,000 people have been let loose in our country. 16,000 people convicted of being a rapist. 13,000 convicted murderers, and 400,000 of people generally convicted of crimes released on her watch. It's not going to get better.
Now, of course, then, but Jake Tapper then is like, that's fake Tapper, by the way. But he needs to apologize. He's insulting the mentally disabled. People, how many millions of people are mentally impaired? He's insulting them. Listen now to Lindsey Graham. Roll cut 10A, Mike.
I can tell you this: the man who killed Laken Riley in Georgia was released by the Biden-Harris administration on parole because they had no capacity at the border to hold him. That's not a reason to parole people. I promise you, women have been raped and murdered. People have been hurt by illegal immigrants released into this country without detention. It is a nightmare. It is crazy. It's crazy to boycott a speech by the Prime Minister of Israel to a joint session of Congress thinking it won't embolden Iran. Well, it's crazy to withdraw from Afghanistan hoping things will be different this time. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, crazy stuff.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying she's crazy. I'm saying your policies are bat crazy.
So, bat crap crazy. So, but look, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I get his point. I would go even further. I don't know why Republicans are running from this. I would say, I'm sorry, she's mentally impaired. Yes, she's got something wrong. Something is seriously wrong with this woman. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know if it's too much drinky. I don't know if this woman has been boozing it up too much. Clearly, she's got a problem with alcoholism. I don't know if it's too much drugs and marijuana. I don't know what the hell it is. But that you would allow this to happen to our country and stand back and cackle and laugh? No, Jake, we got a problem. This woman is a sociopath. And psychologically, she's not right in the head. Now, you want to quibble over impairment? Go ahead and quibble. I really don't care. But this woman, seriously, needs psychiatric help. She's not right in the head. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Caitlin has messaged me on Messenger, and she's saying, look, Jeff, please, you've got to read this. So, Caitlin said, and she's in all caps, Jeff, I have 2 disabled brothers. Okay, so 2 brothers who are mentally disabled. And here's what she wrote. Jeff, we all know what Trump meant regarding his comment. The Democrats and the media are just using disabled people now as a campaign strategy. Once again, using someone else's pain to make a point or statement, as if they care so much about the disabled community in this country. I have 2 disabled brothers, Jeff. One that I take care of. He was born this way. He never had a chance to work, get an actual job. He hates people who take what they have for granted, even the power to walk. He gets no special treatment. This country doesn't treat him with respect or any dignity. He gets the bare minimum Social Security disability and then no food stamps. Even though he was born this way, no special treatment from our government. But regardless, he might take that comment badly. I wouldn't. I grew up with him. I take care of him. I know the difference between someone who's mentally challenged and someone with brain damage, along with another brother born with severe mental disabilities. And it goes on to say their father was a Marine in Vietnam, exposed to Agent Orange, and they believe that that's what eventually led to these congenital defects. Anyway, the point is, she goes on to say, Jeff, what about the illegals or the illegal who raped a disabled child inside a shelter months ago here in Massachusetts? This predator didn't even get a slap on the wrist, out on bail. So don't tell me that these people care about those who are mentally disabled. Well, that's a brilliant point, Caitlin, I have to say. And, just stand back for a second. Speaking now of one of her disabled brothers, okay, that she takes care of. And God bless you, Caitlin, for taking care of your disabled brother. He was born disabled. He was born. That's the way the poor man was born. He doesn't get food stamps. He doesn't get free shelter. He doesn't get, free food, free education, free health care, EBT, $2,000 prepaid Visa gift cards, free computers, free clothes. I bet he's not getting $64 a day in catered meals. But illegals are. So if you're an illegal alien who broke our laws and came into our country, then you're going to get everything. Free meals, free shelter, free clothes, free health care, free education, free debit cards, free. But you're disabled and born here? Blank you. 849 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay, this is Mary Ann on Messenger. Good morning, Jeff. I am sick of the hypocrisy because every day I read comments on Facebook calling Trump mentally disabled by liberals, saying that he has dementia, calling him a rapist. You know the drill, every name in the book. But they never admit that Biden has dementia. In fact, they'll never admit that heels up Kamala is not fit for the job of president, but they are always ready to say that Trump is not. The hypocrisy runs deep. Bingo. Bingo. You're completely right. I mean, they literally call Trump every name in the book. I mean, what's worse than Hitler? And they call him mentally disabled all the time. In fact, they say much harsher things. So, racist, rapist, sexist, misogynist, homophobic, Islamophobic, a fascist, a white supremacist. I could go on and on and on and on. I mean, really, the hate and the vitriol, it's unimaginable. So, no, I have no sympathy for these people whatsoever. Now they're going to, clutch their pearls all of a sudden and say, oh, he said she's mentally impaired. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. David in Boston. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Oh, hi, Jeff. Yeah, this
David.
Is David. Yeah, Jeff. I'm not a.
Okay, we lost David. Debbie in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Debbie, and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
I have
Debbie.
a couple of things that Hi, good morning. I've been thinking about a few things as I walk around with my dogs every day. One of them, you're talking about Obama. You know, I'm sorry. I feel like Obama is running the show behind the scenes, and everybody's talking about how Biden wants to start a war to go to Iran with Iran, and then do martial law. I don't think that Obama would allow that. I think he's very tight with Iran. That's one thing that I wanted to say. And obviously he's making the policies, not Harris. And then I don't think President Trump talks enough about unrealized gain. Like, he talks about it, but he doesn't break it down in numbers. Like, if you own a house and your house, goes up in value this much, this is what they're going to look to come and take from you. I mean, lots of people own houses, and it's going to affect their 401k. I think if he talks about it in real terms of, like, what they actually could come after you for on a yearly basis for unrealized gain, that would really wake up a lot of people. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about is what's going on with FEMA, or what's not going on with FEMA. Do you think that they're not doing that on purpose, not because of the equality or equity or whatever it was you mentioned earlier, but more of they don't want to get those states up and running, even a little bit in the next 3 weeks so that people don't have the ability to vote? I mean, if there's that much water damage and...
Oh, I think there's no question. Debbie, no, I think there's no question. There's no question. Look, this has decimated red states, and in those purple states like Georgia and North Carolina, it's hit the red counties extremely hard. You don't want these people, those areas rebuilt, because if they're rebuilt, then people will vote. So there's no question that this is political. Look, people on the ground, the media is not reporting this aspect of the story. The people on the ground are furious. They're livid with FEMA. They're saying they're being deliberately slow, ineffective. Much of the aid hasn't materialized yet. People are dying. Homes and you've got to see some of the pictures. One picture in particular out of North Carolina. I can't, this is Noah's Ark. I mean, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And they're saying, look, that helicopter, that's a private helicopter. That helicopter, private helicopter. These people on these boats that are rescuing people, that's all private. It's all literally neighbor helping neighbor. Where is FEMA? So they talk a good game. They go on the media. They say we've released all this money and money's on the way, but nothing is reaching them. And I want to read to you, Debbie, something that this is Stephen Miller, he was a Trump's immigration czar in the first term, and I think he will be again. He's one of his top advisors. Now, here's what he said. I want everybody to listen to this. Biden-Harris transformed FEMA into an illegal alien resettlement agency. You can either have a government that prioritizes Americans or one that prioritizes illegal aliens. We are now living through the consequences of a government that always puts illegal aliens first. Bingo. He's completely right. What FEMA has done primarily in the last 3.5 years, they're the ones flying in the illegals in the dead of night. They're the ones resettling them in states and cities all across the country. So that's what FEMA has been primarily doing for the last 3.5 years. And as I pointed out, you go on their website. Yeah, they give you the normal disclaimer. Our mission is, recovery and disaster relief. But they say it afterwards. After this, our number one goal is equity. Equity in the workplace. Equity. It has become now a woke agency, primarily politicized on behalf of the Democrats to resettle illegals. And now we have a natural disaster of historic proportions a month before an election in which red states, red counties, red communities are being utterly devastated and completely destroyed. And the citizens themselves are saying, where is FEMA? Where is Kamala? Where is Biden? We have been abandoned by our own government in our own country. And I think it goes right to what you're saying. They want those communities buried. They want them swept into the dustbin of history so that they can't vote in the numbers they normally would, because Kamala needs Georgia and she needs North Carolina to win. And I'm sorry to say it, but that's the fact. And I'll tell you something else, and many of you are making the same point, and I agree with you. I think another reason why the media in particular have pounced all over this mentally impaired comment that Trump said is they're trying to marginalize what's happening down south. Yes, it's a sensational story. They'll report on it. Oh, look at the floods. Look at the water. Look at the bodies. People are dying. But they're not connecting anything to the scandal at FEMA. They're not connecting anything to the utter negligence. Remember New Orleans, Hurricane Katrina, what they did to poor George W. Bush? Because he wouldn't get on a plane or a helicopter and surveil the damage from the sky? Where's Joe Biden? Where's Kamala? FEMA now is performing infinitely worse than it did in New Orleans under Hurricane Katrina. It's not even close. That aspect they are not covering. They don't want to cover. And I think it goes right back. They're trying to suppress the vote. As I said earlier, I'm telling you, if this was Massachusetts or New York City or Chicago or California or a blue state stronghold, holy mackerel, you'd be stunned how quick the federal government response would be. But these are red states primarily, Trump people, MAGA country. The ultimate middle finger. You kiss it, and then you give it. You flip the bird. That's what they're effectively doing to those poor people down there. And that's why Trump is going to be there today. And he is outraged, and I don't blame him. You know, you can say whatever you want about Trump. New York City hated Trump. Manhattan, in fact, they're the ones driving the prosecutions of Trump. At the height of the COVID pandemic, when New York asked for beds, they got beds. They wanted ventilators, they got ventilators. Hell, he sent a naval ship hospital. Whatever they needed, they got. Because to Trump, we're all Americans. To Biden and Harris, there's the Democrats and the enemy. And we're the enemy. Final word to you, Deb.
I mean, it's sad to say, but everything you just said is true. But I just feel like, you know, I'm sickened about the conditions of these, you know, this flood, you know, this hurricane. But I mean, is there any way that these people can vote anywhere? You know what I'm saying? I mean, then they actually, if they could turn out somewhere else. You know, I don't know. I just feel like the whole thing is so sad and it's so disgusting, and it really all does.
No, Debbie, listen to me. Listen to me. I'm telling you, I'm speaking now like, I'm going to be brutally honest with you like I'm in a confessional, okay? Mark my words. This is Kamala Harris's Hurricane Katrina moment. Neighbor, it's a miracle what's happening. Neighbor is rescuing neighbor. Neighbor is helping neighbor. Again, like we think of this almost as a movie. It's not. You have people getting into helicopters saying, how much does it cost to rent one? Here, a couple $1,000. Here it is. Okay? Take my money. I can fly a helicopter. And they're literally rescuing people off of rooftops because FEMA won't do a damn thing. People are being rescued. People are coming together. They're going to rebuild those communities. But they're not going to forget what Kamala and Joe Biden just did. And the anger in Georgia is going to grow. You watch when Trump goes there today. The hatred for Kamala Harris. Then this is going to reverberate across Georgia. It's going to reverberate across North Carolina. She just lost Georgia and North Carolina. Mark my words. This is handing the election to Trump on a silver platter. Because the people of North Carolina and the people of Georgia are looking at this and saying, not even a hello? Not even a how are you? Look, all day yesterday, throughout the show while I'm off air, people can testify to this. I got people in South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, listeners of this show, sending me pictures of the damage. And I'm going back, are you okay? Are you safe? Is your family safe? Do you need anything? Is there anything I can do for you? Now, who am I? I'm not the president. I'm not the vice president. I don't run FEMA. So they're telling me, Jeff, the anger, the frustration, the sense of betrayal, it is so palpable you can feel it in those states. And the political blowback from this is going to be immense. That's why Trump is teed off. That's why he's calling her mentally impaired. She's a cold, callous, I don't want to say something I'm going to get in trouble. She's a cold, callous witch. I'm telling you, this woman has ice water in her veins. When you see the scale of the devastation and suffering, and your attitude is let them eat cake, blank them. These are conservatives. This is MAGA country. I got a fundraiser in San Francisco. That's a sociopath. Something's not right with this woman. It's obvious. So, Debbie, trust me when I tell you this. They just kissed away North Carolina and Georgia. And by the way, I have to say this, to be fair. I backed Trump over DeSantis in the primary, as you know. My wife, Grace, backed DeSantis. His response to Hurricane Helene, masterful. Florida, people, the preparedness. I don't know if you've seen the images. Debbie, I'm talking cities of trucks. These power line trucks. The first responders, there's thousands of them. It's like an army marshaled, ready to go. I mean, the way he moved those trucks in, how quickly they rebuilt, how quickly they weathered the hurricane. It is a masterpiece in governance. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Ron DeSantis is the best governor in the country. There's no question. He's in a class all by himself. What he did it in the previous hurricane, and he just did it again. So I don't know about 2028. We'll see what happens. But I'm telling you, as a governor, I would vote for him in Florida again and again and again. Because the way he responded and managed the response to Hurricane Helene, it's almost as perfect can get. I mean, nothing is ever perfect in this kind of a situation. But man, I mean, look, the people of Florida are all saying it's the exact opposite of Kamala. 24/7, on the ground, working with crews, getting information, marshaling resources, organizing, helping organize everybody, worried about people, making sure people's lives are saved, doing everything they can to mitigate this storm. He's not out partying or raising money. So I gotta give Ron DeSantis his due. His response, a masterclass. 617-266-6868, just my opinion. Brian in Holbrook. Thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
Jeff, nice to talk with you.
Hi, Brian.
I want to make I want to talk about that comment that Trump had made, mentally disabled.
Mentally impaired.
And I want to,
mentally impaired.
Mentally impaired. What I want to say, Jeff, is I am mentally disabled. Okay? And I did not in any way, shape, or form take offense to that at all. Not at all. I'll tell you what does bother me a great deal is every time the numbers are brought up on how many pedophiles are in this country now, this goes back to why I'm mentally disabled. From the age of 4 years old till the age of 11, it was not a family member. I have to emphasize that. I was a victim of pedophiles, okay? And we were all scared senseless by these pedophiles that we couldn't say anything or they would kill our families, okay? Well, this went on from the age of 4 till the age of 11. And then I was told by the school officer that used to come to the school and talk to us about talking to strangers to call the police or mention it to the police. To make a long story short, it was a Saturday afternoon. This whole thing has triggered me, so I'm right back there, and it's okay. But anyways, it was a Saturday. The pedophile, this happened to be an uncle of a friend of mine, was waiting for us. There was a police officer at the old call boxes that they used to have to call in when they were on their rounds. I saw the police officer and I saw the pedophile. And I'm saying to myself, now's the time. The police are there. Now's the time to turn them in. And I went to the police officer, and he was within 60 feet of the pedophile that was waiting in the car. These guys are smooth, real smooth. And I said to the officer, officer, that man right there. And I pointed to the car, his white Volkswagen. And I said, officer, we have big trouble. And he looked at me and I said, that man right there in that car is doing things to the boys in the neighborhood and I said dirty things to the boys. I didn't know what to say. And the cop knew exactly what I said. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the police. I'll stop and talk to a cop, and the first thing I'll say is, thank you for what you do, for what you're willing to do for us. This particular police officer said, when I told him the story, I needed help. My friends needed help. He said to me, I'll never forget it. I got to clean it up a little bit. He said, get the hell out of here before I boot you in the butt.
Shameful. That's disgraceful. He betrayed you. He betrayed you. That officer betrayed his badge. He betrayed his oath. When you have someone walk up to you and say you're being molested and other children are being molested, and that guy, that perp, is sitting right there in that car, that to me is absolutely disgraceful. And I'm very sorry that happened to you. I'm really very sorry. And I know it's something you never truly recover from. But I gotta say, Brian, you sound good. You sound actually very honestly smart, intelligent, coherent, put together. You're making very good points. And to get to the original point that you were making, saying, hey, Jeff, I've been suffering this massive trauma and it's had a real impact on my life. And, I consider myself in some ways mentally disabled. I wasn't offended. And I think the reason why you weren't offended was because he wasn't insulting you. Trump was not insulting or attacking the quote-unquote mentally disabled or the mentally challenged or whatever term you want to use. He was criticizing Kamala Harris. And what he was saying is she's mentally impaired. Listen to his choice of words. She's mentally impaired. In other words, there's something wrong with her brain. That there's a lack of empathy, a lack of compassion, frankly, and also a level of stupidity that says there's something, as I like to say, the elevator doesn't go to the top. Really, I've met people like that. And I don't know if it's because they're psychological narcissists or whatever it is, but you look at them and you're like, are you normal? Like, are you okay? And when you willingly allow convicted murderers and convicted rapists and child molesters by the thousands to roam freely in your own country, you're sick in the head. 920 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Many of you are making a really good point. This is from 602. Jeff, what has Michael Savage said for years? Liberalism is a mental disorder. Kamala is the poster child for that statement. Bingo. That's really, I mean, all Trump is saying is, in his own Trumpian way, liberalism is a mental disorder. Just look at Kamala. Clearly there's something not right in the head with that woman. And then David on Messenger, out in the Pittsburgh area, Dave, my Messenger buddy, made a really interesting point, saying, Jeff, has everybody forgotten East Palestine, Ohio already? Massive chemical spill, toxic spill, again, in a red area, heartland of Ohio. And where was FEMA? FEMA was blasted, excoriated by residents, the mayor, everybody, for their pathetic and late response. What was it, days it took for them to get on the scene? Weeks to start doing anything to start cleaning up the toxic spill? So, no, there's no question. FEMA has been completely politicized. If you're an illegal alien, top priority, they resettle you anywhere you want. But if you happen to live in a blue state or a blue county or a blue part of the country and you're the victim of a disaster, tough luck. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Linda in Leicester. Thanks for holding, Linda, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good. How are you, Linda?
Good, good. I enjoy your show. I've been listening for a while.
Thank you, Linda.
I just want to start with just a couple of things. Just want to change some word salads that I hear all the time. I'm so tired of hearing mainstream media. I want to change that to mainstream propaganda, because it's no longer media, no longer news, it's propaganda. And propaganda is really a nice word. I could change it to a more dirtier word than propaganda, if you know what I mean.
Yes, BS.
Yes. And another word I could change. I want to change. They call Kamala. Kamala is the border czar. Well, czar is too nice a word for Kamala. So I want to make Kamala, she's actually the border crisis. Kamala is the border crisis, and not just on the border now. She's the crisis. Everywhere she goes, she causes a crisis, or she avoids the crisis, as we've been listening now with Hurricane Helene and all the damage and destruction that's going on down south. And she just is a crisis. She's a crisis waiting to happen. She causes all these crises. So no more border czar. She's just a border crisis.
Linda, I got to say, I was talking about this with Grace last night, and she said, Jeff, we've been talking about the election now for a while. She said, the sense I get from you is you really fear Kamala, is what she said to me, even more than Biden. And I said, oh, no question. I said, no question. I knew Biden would be bad. I knew he'd be a disaster. But I'm telling you, Kamala is a level worse. And that's Trump's feeling as well, and I agree with him. It's not, look, I don't like Joe Biden. I don't care for Joe Biden. He clearly had problems with dementia early on. There's no doubt. In 2020, he had serious issues. But this woman is frighteningly incompetent. And combined with frighteningly arrogant and frighteningly sociopathic, she really is truly completely out of her league and out of her depth. And the damage that someone like that can do, and this is not hypothetical, Lenin was a grossly incompetent man. Stalin was a grossly incapable man. They destroyed Russia. Castro, what Castro did to Cuba, it's unforgivable. What Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, people from Venezuela, middle class, working class people, they go, You put a guy like him in power, or in this case, they're saying you put someone like Kamala in power, it's like giving a child a loaded gun. You know, Pol Pot, he ruined Cambodia. Mao ruined China. You're dealing someone of colossal incompetence with no conscience whatsoever. She slept her way to the top. She'll say anything to anyone. She's a chronic alcohol abuser. The woman's a drunk. She's a lush who's fried her brains on God knows how much. She's smoked more marijuana than Cheech and Chong combined. And you're going to give her the keys to the palace? I know she's a puppet. I know Obama runs her. I get it. She's a puppet of the system. There's no question. But still, you're going to make her president and commander-in-chief? Linda, someone like that can do immense damage that is irreparable. 9:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, very quickly, 2 quick points. I want to go right back to the phone lines. Couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Kamala Harris, several years ago, listen to this, said that federal disaster relief should be based on the color of one's skin. That according to her, she said race should definitely determine who gets emergency relief and who gets it first, second, and third. Meaning, you know, if you're a minority, you're black, you should get it first. And if you're white, and I guess a conservative, I'm throwing that part in, conservative, blank you, you're Asheville, North Carolina. We'll get to you when we get to you. Now, you tell me. Okay, by the way, this woman is beyond evil. So, the same people who can't define what a woman is are now telling us that if you're dying, or you've lost your home, or you've lost everything, well, we have to see what color your skin is. And if you're too white, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to prioritize resources. This is the woman you want, liberals want to be president of the United States? Now, look, I'm going to be talking about this potentially more tomorrow, but just, I want everybody, please keep this on your radar, because much of the media, some is covering it, CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox Business, some of the business networks, business media, it's a big story. But in the so-called mainstream media, the fake news media, they are pretending this story is not taking place. I mentioned about Georgia and North Carolina. You watch how this neglect of those two states is going to really hurt Kamala in November. Well, listen now to this story. The longshoremen are now poised to go on strike. That apparently now the Longshoremen Association, those are the workers apparently who are working on, it's 45,000 workers from about half the ports in this country, about roughly 3 dozen ports. They handle nearly 50% of all imports coming in. Tonight, they're probably going to, it's very likely they're going to go on strike. Okay, the deadline is tonight at midnight. If they go on strike, and it now appears more and more likely that they will, it's going to cost the economy $5 billion a day. A day. But it's worse, forget the financial cost. Things aren't going to start coming in. Things already now, apparently, some goods are already not being loaded onto trains, because they're saying there's going to be a strike. These things need refrigeration. They're eventually just going to spoil. So you're going to start to maybe see shortages in about a week or two if this strike is not stopped or if it's not resolved. So this is going to lead to a massive economic disruption across the entire country. So the problems now are starting to really compound for this regime. Biden is out to lunch. He has no clue what's going on. I'm not just talking about Hurricane Helene. I'm talking now about this massive strike by port workers, longshoremen all across the country. And Kamala, well, it's Kamala. You know, to quote Trump, she's mentally impaired. Okay, to quote me, we you, elevator does not go to the top. So this is going to be a huge, huge story that's going to have massive impact on the economy unless they can reach a deal before midnight. 617-266-6868. Keep your eye on it, because if there is a strike, holy shamoly, it's going to bring the economy to its knees. Justin in the Freedom State of Florida. Thanks for holding, Justin, and welcome.
How you doing, Jeff?
Hi, Justin.
Well, I was calling because you was talking about Ron DeSantis earlier and how
go ahead.
he
Go
did,
ahead. Yes, go ahead.
and
Justin.
how he did so good with Helene. Well, he's done so good with Helene. He's done so good with COVID, and he's made Florida a self-sufficient state. And I think every other governor, especially on the Hurricane Coast, needs to take note because he don't need FEMA for us.
That's a great point. No, you're right. He did it assuming FEMA's not going to help. He circumvented. He went around FEMA. He said, we'll just do it ourselves. I agree. No, look, Justin, let's be frank, okay? Let's be candid. As the French would say, entre nous, among us. Brian Kemp, I know he's technically a Republican, but he's a rhino governor. I don't think he's a very good governor of Georgia. I just don't. North Carolina, Roy Cooper, I think he's a joke. Another Democrat, he's a joke. So they don't have the kind of quality management and the kind of quality leadership that, frankly, you see with DeSantis and his people. And that's why they need FEMA. I mean, you're right. In theory, they don't need FEMA. Ron DeSantis has proven it. But Cooper can't handle this. Brian Kemp can't handle it. That's why they're panicking, and that's why the poor people are suffering. And that's why it makes it even worse now that FEMA has turned its back on these poor, suffering people all across the Southeast. What say you, Justin?
I agree 100%. And the one thing I am going to say before I get off here and let somebody else talk is us as Floridians, well, conservatives on our side, we were all holding our breath when Ron DeSantis put his name in for the presidential ticket. And I guess you can call it selfish or what, but we all took a deep breath when he dropped back out so we could keep him for 2 more years.
That's interesting. Justin, thank you very much for that call. Look, he's the best governor now in the country. There's no question. And we'll see what happens in 2028. Already, I'm hearing people saying J.D. Vance and Ron DeSantis. A Vance-DeSantis ticket in 2028. Which I think would be an absolutely formidable ticket. But we got to win first. To me, we got to win in November. And then we can talk about the succession. But look, I think DeSantis, by endorsing Trump, by being a good campaign surrogate for Trump, and now by his masterful leadership of Florida, I think he's in many ways rehabilitated his career after losing the primary. And really, he was not a good candidate. Great governor, but not a very good presidential candidate. I think he's rehabilitated himself. And I think he's now a national force to be reckoned with again. And he's still got 2 more years to go. 617-266-6868. Dawn in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Dawn, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. I didn't think I was going to get on today. I have a few points I want to make.
Yes, go ahead.
I have a handicapped sister who was born deaf, brain damage, with hydrocephalus. So she doesn't speak, she doesn't hear. I was not insulted by, I know where Trump was going. I was not insulted by that at all. Excuse my voice. Talk about elevators. My voice was up and down like an elevator. But anyway, yeah, so she was living in a group home, which I took her. She's been with me for 25 years now. I take care of her 24/7. She has a quality of life she never had before. She's happy. She's out in the community. She does things. But I'll tell you one thing. When she was in a group home, she was voting. And how I found out was I got a letter. They wanted her for jury duty. I called up and I left them. I said, Jane ain't going to show up, you know? So they said, well, she has to. I said, no, Jane's deaf. She doesn't know what's going on. So she was voting. And you know how those votes went. So they're taking kids, handicapped children, from group homes, taking them to vote, and they have no idea what they're doing. That's number one. Excuse my voice. Number two, the first thing they do when they need money, they cut the handicap, which really bugs me. They take money right from the handicap because, half of them live in group homes, but a lot of them have families that vote. And I'm going quickly because I want to get all this in. Let's see. I can't even read my own writing.
That's okay. No, listen, look, I have to say, Dawn, you've made some excellent points. Number one, and this is a point that Caitlin made earlier, who takes care of a disabled brother. She says exactly what you just said. They give the disabled peanuts to begin with. These are American citizens. No fault of their own. They were born that way. By the grace of God, there go I, there go we. They get peanuts from the government, everything to the illegals, okay? Illegals, okay? And they're always the first to be cut. And now these liberals are going to start claiming, you called her mentally impaired. Oh, you're allegedly insulting all these mentally disabled people. Bull, you know what? They don't give a damn. They don't give a damn. More with your calls next. Okay, 9:49 on the great WRKO. I'm telling you, more horrible news for Kamala and Joey. It's just, I don't mean to laugh because the stakes are so high, but they're in trouble. They're in big trouble. So it's all weekend long, and now apparently I'm just getting a huge, on my news feed, it's blowing up. Apparently now Israeli tanks, military tanks, have been massing on the Israel-Lebanon border over the last 24 to 48 hours. So it appears, again, they can always pull back from the brink, but it appears now that a massive ground invasion of Lebanon is imminent. Imminent. We're on the cusp of a major war in the Middle East. 617, and it's all at the feet of Kamala and Biden. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 603 about this massive hurricane, Hurricane Helene, that is devastating the Southeast. And this is what 603 points out, and it's a very, very good point. In fact, I even forgot about it. Jeff, this is almost exactly the same scenario that happened in 2015 when Trump first ran for president and we had a massive hurricane. Obama then couldn't be bothered to show up, and Hillary as well couldn't be bothered to show up. But Trump and Melania flew right in, rendered aid by passing out provisions and meeting with the victims on the ground. Remember how the residents were so relieved to see him and how they were asking for his help? Trump assured them that help was on the way, and you could see the relief on their faces that finally a real leader who actually cared had shown up to help. Now history is repeating itself. Bingo. Trump's going to be in Georgia. I think he's going to go later to North Carolina. And it's going to be a split screen. There's Trump on the ground, helping out fellow Americans, passing out water, much needed food, emergency medical supplies, probably going to give people hugs, high fives, rally, say, don't worry, we got your back, we're going to get through this. And the other side of the split screen, nothing. Where's Kamala? Where's Kamala? She just kissed away Georgia and North Carolina. 617-266-6868. Mark in Westford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Mark.
So I'm thinking this longshoreman strike is going to happen, and I think it's going to be a lot of turmoil. I believe this is our October surprise. The administration's probably going to let it happen because the communists love turmoil. They love people to be afraid and want to rely on the government. So they're going to be screaming to have the government intervene. And I think this is going to be at least one of our October surprises that are going to affect the election.
Well, you know, Mark, look, I agree with you. I think it's going to be an October surprise. There's no question. But this is going to boomerang against them big. This is going to lead to shortages, long lines, supply chain issues. It's going to remind everybody. Remember in 2021, my bad. Remember when people couldn't find baby food and baby formula and the shelves were half empty? That's what it's going to remind people of. They're going to blame Biden. They're going to blame Harris. Like, it's in a sense now, look, you may disagree, Mark. It's almost like a perfect constellation. The longshoremen go on strike. It's going to really damage the economy. It's going to redound against Kamala and Biden. You've got a major ground invasion now. That's any day now. It's imminent. Major war in the Middle East. It's going to redound against Biden and Harris. You've got now this Hurricane Helene and the devastation, and they're completely ineffective. In fact, non-response. And there's Trump on the ground. It looks like America and the world is burning, and they're doing nothing, and the only one that's showing leadership is Trump. I think her numbers are going to tank. I mean, it doesn't, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a foreign war, whether it's the economy, whether it's now shortages and supply chain issues, she's useless, Biden's useless, the country's going to cry out for new leadership. What say you, Mark?
I don't know, but I think they may use this to maybe even like declare martial law or something. They're gonna use this in a way to turn it around so that they'll stay in control somehow.
Interesting. Mark, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Caroline in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Caroline, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. It's Sue, but I just want to say
I'm sorry. How do we get from How do we get Caroline out of Sue? Sue, I'm sorry. 1 minute. Go.
So there's something called Operation-Airdrop.com, and they're looking for donations and volunteer pilots. And also, if I only have 1 minute, I'd just like to say he's right that screw FEMA. I mean, people need to just learn, finally, to take care of themselves and not rely on the government. I know people in Hendersonville, and they're major preppers, and I'm going to guarantee you that preppers are going to take care of the people there.
Sue, a great way to end the show. Screw FEMA. We take care of each other. This is America, baby. I gotta go. Bye-bye.